All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So it's Taco Tuesday. I want to talk about, what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about old Trump
have the same
sending
cartel identification structures
military
that we
action
do here
against
in the
Latin
United
American
States. And certainly
cartels
now,
classified as
fentanyl is
terrorist
pouring throughout
organizations.
Canada. Mexico and the cartels are
there's
now
actually
seeking to
quite
sort
a
of
bit to
eke out
discuss here
China and create
because
their
there's
own
the public
fentanyl
face of
products.
what
So
it is,
this is only a
and then there's the
latent,
reality
my
of what
argument
this
is,
So this
depression in terms
article's
of the
from Fox
statistics
News
because they
from
are
a
not
day or
going
two
anywhere.
ago.
You take $1
Trump
from those
approves
cartels
military
and they
action
will
against
claw
Latin American
to get it back.
cartels
So do you see this as
classified
that
as
logical
terrorist
step, and will this be
organizations.
effective?
Yes, I
President
do.
Donald
You know,
Trump
and
has
the objective is protecting the
secretly-
homeland, as we discussed. I mean,
How
President
secret
Trump's
is
got
it,
a big
Fox? You're
job to do. I
reporting
mean,
on
we
it,
had 4
shitheads.
years
Has
of
secretly
completely open
authorized
borders
military force
under
against Latin American
Biden.
drug
He
cartels
allowed
designated by the
terrorists,
United
gang
States
members,
foreign
these
terrorist
cartels
organizations,
into
according to
America,
reports.
and now President
The
Trump is
move,
tasked with
reported by the New York
preventing
Times,
more
would
of that,
give
and then
US
also
forces permission
expelling
to engage
and
the
deporting all
cartels,
of these terrible
which
people
traffic
that
drugs
Biden
like
just,
fentanyl
let
across the
waltz
US-Mexico
into the country. Also say
Now,
President Trump is so smart because he's a problem
there's
solver.
a few things
Even
there,
looking at the
but-
unprecedented
okay,
use of
just
designating these
bear with
terrorists
me.
or these
Let's
cartels as
read
terrorist
a little more of the
organizations.
article before I dig
We
into
previously
this,
looked at them
in the
as
analytics
organized
and give
crime
kind of the
syndicates. So
inside
even
baseball on
that
this.
is just an interesting and a thoughtful approach from the president of problem
Patrick
solving.
says,
It also
oh.
expands government power to freezing assets, prosecuting
video
perceived
over it.
associates,
Okay,
being
let
able to
me-
employ military and intelligence tools.
That's weird.
So
I'm
I
not
think this is
hearing
very
it,
smart
I'm not
from the
hearing it
president and
here,
just
so
another
let me see.
example of sort of this outsider approach, the CEO approach of problem solving.
Charlie,
Bear
this
with
is
me a
sending such
second.
a strong message, too, again, of this reinforcement of our sovereignty and our unwillingness to let any American die of poisoning. Talk to us about the
Well,
synergy that the
crap.
professor mentioned, though, because without the Mexican president buy-in, that was supposed to be a collaboration that could sort of help effectively break apart the cartels. Do we need her on board?
Okay, well, first of all, the president obviously does nothing by half, and it's clear
y'all
that
let
if
me
he
know
cares
when
about an
the-
issue, he's going to hit it 17
Let me
different
know
ways
when-
in an
when
additional
whatever
way
it
just
is
for
that's playing
safety.
over the background
So I think
stops
that what the
playing,
president is
because
doing here
now I'm
is that
trying to
making
find
sure that at the very least, this is an option. So he's saying it can happen. The Mexican president is saying, no, it can't. At least that's what she's saying publicly. But if something needs to happen behind the scenes, at least the president has already started.
Did that get it? Okay, Patrick, I need a little feedback here. Did I find it? Because I'm not seeing. Okay. Jay says I found it. Jay says I got it. Do. So let me try this again. All right. So, secretly authorized military force. The president is determined to not just dismantle, but completely destroy Maduro's Cartel de los Soles and obliterate their operations in the Western Hemisphere. A source close to the White House said. Okay, so says President Trump signs executive orders in the Oval Office of the White House in D.C. on the 20th. Oh, that's a picture from the 20th. The anti-cartel effort is being coordinated among several departments, including the Department of Defense, Justice Department, Department of Homeland Security, Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and the Treasury. President Trump's top priority is protecting the homeland, which is why he took the bold step to designate several cartels and gangs as foreign terrorist organizations. Deputy White House Press Secretary Ann Kelly said in a statement to Fox News Digital. Okay, so what's a generous and libertarian, say libertine person might say recreational drugs, who cares? Right. Maybe you want to smoke a little wacky tobacco in the privacy of your own home. The real criminals are those assholes that sell drugs to kids. Right. Here's the thing. We do have a problem with drugs in this country. We have a problem with kids smoking a little wacky backy, right? We have a problem with a fentanyl and opioid epidemic killing people. Thousands of people overdosing on opioids, fentanyl, etc. Drugs are in fact a real problem. Now, personally, I don't care if you want to do some drugs. I'm good. Whatever. It's not for me. I'm not interested. And I'll even go so far as to say, as I've said many times before, from a purely constitutional basis, the federal government has no authority to be involved in drug enforcement within the United States. Okay? Right? If I want to grow some cannabis on my own property and then sell it to my friends and neighbors within my little town, the federal government has no legitimate constitutional authority to tell me I can't. Now, the law disagrees. The law is wrong because the law disagrees with itself. It doesn't just disagree with me, it disagrees with itself. There is nowhere in the Constitution that the federal government is afforded the authority to control drugs in the way it does. And that extends to the control of prescription medication. There's nowhere in the Constitution that the federal government can derive such an authority. That said, we do allow in the Constitution for the federal government to have control over what comes across our borders, our national borders. And here's the real problem with the cartels, is that it's not just drugs that they bring across the borders, right? The cartels are not just, sophisticated drug manufacturing businesses, manufacturing distribution businesses, right? You watch a movie or a TV show like Breaking Bad, and you might get the impression that, oh, well, one cartel specializes in meth and one specializes in heroin, etc. And what it is that cartel is really just a South American or Mexican family that has a big old farm where they grow pot and they mail it to America. Here's the thing. Illegal immigration is a huge problem in this country. Human trafficking is a huge problem in this country. Slavery is a huge problem worldwide. That human trafficking, that, a naive person might think that when we talk about human trafficking, what you're talking about is the coyotes who, well, they're really just helping people have freedom of movement across these ridiculous invisible borders. Human trafficking is smuggling illegal immigrants as part of their business. Yes. Smuggling criminals out of the jurisdiction where they risk facing judgment is also part of their business. Smuggling child sex slaves into our country is also part of their business. Running those children until they're worn out and then having them impregnated outside of the U.S. and smuggling them back to abortion clinics in the U.S. for organ harvesting is also part of their business. Smuggling terrorists into our country is also part of their business. Right? So when you look at the idea of Trump sending the U.S. military to deal with cartels, the only question anybody should be asking on that is, why in the hell have we been sending money to Ukraine, troops to the Middle East, money to Israel, et cetera, when we have a legitimate casus belli We should be conducting open war, and we should have been conducting open war for decades against these cartels. So the deployment of U.S. military against South American, Latino, whatever cartels is not just a correct maneuver. It's a long time overdue. Right? We should have been doing this in the 80s. Instead of just running public service announcements, just say no. Right? Just say no, kids. Running the DARE campaigns. Ooh. No. We should have been bombing the shit out of cartels for the last 40 or 50 years. Because like I said, people hear cartel, they think drugs, and they think street gangs. No. The cartels, they are big time organized crime. Drugs, weapons, terrorists, slaves, child sex slaves, organ harvesting, trafficking criminal hostile foreign invaders into our country, facilitating illegal border crossings, right? Now, it also happens that we're looking at an interesting little piece of, shall we say, coincidental serendipity with the ending of USAID. Right? With the ending of USAID, all the Epstein clients in the Democrat Party are suddenly they've suddenly had their access cut off, and it's more difficult for them to send funds to the cartels now. So we may actually finally be looking at a situation where we've got a big sack of nuts in the White House that's strong enough to go ahead and move forward with this at the same time that U.S. funding for cartel military assets has been cut off by shutting down USAID. Pitt Danny says what it would amount to is the U.S. saving Mexico for the good Mexicans. Yeah, see, that's another thing that's worth mentioning. The current president of Mexico, Gloria Sheinbaum. Sheinbaum. Her election came on the heels of I forget the number. It was ridiculous. It was like 12 or 13 other politicians running for president were assassinated that year by cartels. Right? Mexico is entirely a captured state. Right? It is run by the cartels. If a politician gets elected in Mexico, it's not because they campaigned the best, they had the best public sentiment. It's because they're the one the cartel didn't murder. And if a politician doesn't get murdered by the cartel in Mexico, it means that the cartel supports that politician. Right? The cartel uses the power of the ultimate vote, which is the anti-vote. And yeah, Be Controversial says Mexico's a failed state. That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So this, yeah, I mean, this is absolutely the right maneuver. And I look forward to it. Now, in other news, the other thing I wanted to talk about this morning, here's another article. Okay, yeah, that's 2 in a row from Fox News. Normally I say Fox is not your friend, but I've got several articles pulled up on this one, and I want to start with the Fox News article because this version of it is kind of the milquetoast, middle of the road version. Then we're going to look at Some CNN reporting. Trump is threatening to federalize D.C. with National Guard and more. Excuse me. Is threatening to federalize D.C. with National Guard and more. Here's how that could play out. President Trump is weighing whether to deploy up to 1,000 National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. as early as this week. Fox News has learned in an effort to help deal with what he characterized as a surge in violent crime. The plans come just one day after Trump vowed on Truth Social to evict homeless persons from the nation's capital. The homeless have to move out immediately, Trump said on social media. We will give you places to stay, but far from the capital. The criminals, you don't have to move out. We're going to put you in jail where you belong. That's a great line. And so you're going to hear a lot of crying about constitutional authority and this and that, and it's coming from people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. So let's take a peek at from the Washington Post. Mayor Bowser calls Trump's takeover of D.C. Police Department unsettling and unprecedented. Okay, it's not unprecedented. That's a lie. It was done. It was done after the MLK assassination in the face of those race riots. It's been done before. The federalization of the D.C. police, the president taking control of the D.C. police. It's been done. Let's be very clear on this. The authority for this, it comes directly from the Constitution, right? Under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, the government excuse me, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district as may become the seat of the government of the United States. Congress, and by extension the federal government generally, that includes the president as the administration, has supreme authority over D.C., unlike its relationship with other states. Basically, what that means is Washington, D.C. is intentionally and explicitly not a state. You've had calls in recent years by Democrats to make D.C. the 51st state. And that's just psychotic. That's insane. Under its original construction, there should be no one who is a resident in D.C. People should not live in Washington, D.C. The point to D.C. is that it is the government and only the government, and the people do not live there. They live in states and cities where they have their city and state governments, and then D.C. is where the government lives, not the people in the government. For the people who are part of the government, D.C. is where they go to do business. They're not supposed to live there. Pitt Danny says, no, make it part of Virginia or Maryland. No, it must remain separate. It must remain separate because you don't want a state to have any authority or leverage or influence over the federal government. Right? As much as we want the federal government to be smaller and smaller and smaller, for one state to wield it as a cudgel against the other 49 is also not a desirable end goal. But legally, the way it works is DC is federal. It's under the purview of the federal government, of the president and the Congress, right? The authority that is held by the mayor and the chief of police, etc., by the civilian authority, the authority that's held by the civilian authorities in DC is not ceded, delegated to those civilian authorities by the president. So it isn't even technically legally correct to say that Trump is taking over the D.C. police. What he's doing is he is reassigning the delegation. He's looking at the situation. He's saying, okay, listen, Bowser, you fucked it up. You had one job and you didn't do the job. You suck at your job. So somebody else is going to have to come in and do your job for you. That's what that's about. Now, you'll see a bunch of stats coming at you. The Democrats are screaming, oh, but DC's not that bad. The murder rate's down. Down from what, shitheads? There's a 47% spike in the murder rate in 2023. Oh, it's come down since then. Yeah, it's come down to still above where it was in 2023. Going into 2023, it was like top 10 in the country. So yeah, there's worse places. But this is Washington, D.C., where our federal government is. There's no reason in hell that it should be one of the worst crime states or cities in the Union. And it is. And beyond that, we're hearing that it's like Hillary Clinton just the other day tweeted that it's the lowest it's been in the crime rates are the lowest it's been in 30 years. Lowest in 30 years. Except, here's the thing. DC police commander under investigation for allegedly manipulating crime stats. The Metropolitan Police Department is embroiled in controversy over allegations related to its reported crime statistics. The Washington, D.C. Department placed police commander Michael Pulliam on paid administrative leave in May after a police union accused the MPD of deliberately manipulating crime data, several law enforcement told WRC-TV. This is deliberately done. Pulliam, who's under investigation, denied the allegations. Pemberton, the chairman of the D.C. Police Union, a branch of the Fraternal Order of Police, explained to WRC how the statistics are manipulated to make it appear that crime has declined. The union also warned about a larger trend of supervisors instructing employees to engage in such practices. When our members respond to the scene of a felony offense, where there is a victim reporting that a felony occurred, inevitably, there will be a lieutenant or a captain that will show up on that scene and direct those members to take a report for a lesser offense. So instead of taking a report for a shooting or a stabbing or a carjacking, they will order that officer to take a report for a theft or an injured person to the hospital or a felony assault, which is not the same type of classification. And this isn't new. In fact, we've covered this a few times. And it's not just DC, right? We've seen a problem with FBI's reporting statistics where they'll say, oh yeah, the crime statistics for this year were X and the year before that were X. So we see a trend that goes this way. And then we learn, oh, except you're only counting the cities that voluntarily report. And places like there were several major metropolitan cities that just stopped reporting crime statistics to the FBI. And then they were treating it like, oh yeah, well, those cities didn't report, so crime's down. Well, yeah, if we could excise the Democrat blue cancers like DC, New York, Los Angeles, right? If we could flush those off into the ocean and just be rid of them, then hell yeah, crime would go down. Crime would go down a lot by roughly half. And I have to say roughly half because it's a guesstimate based on numbers from previous eras when they did report against presumptive projections to numbers as we would expect them to be reported today. And we just don't have those numbers. But Danny says, and the job numbers. we saw during Obama's run for re-election, like painfully obvious manipulation of unemployment rate statistics, where they changed the way that they report unemployment rates, and then we saw it go from we heard the reporting for weeks, oh, Obama, it looks like Obama might be in trouble because no president's ever won with an unemployment rate above 9%. And then, a week before the election, it comes out, oh, hey guys, miracle job numbers. The unemployment rate dropped to 7.2%. Did it? From almost 10%, it dropped to 7.2. Did it? Dad says the FBI statistics compiled by D.C. Democrats. That is correct. I was watching a podcast earlier where they were talking about Trump pushing to do a mid-decade census, right? And there's been some pushback. Oh, that's unconstitutional. No, it's not. No, it is not. The Constitution says that the census will be conducted every 10 years. It does not say it may not be conducted more frequently. We can do the census every year. In order to remain compliant with the rules given to us by the Constitution, we could do it once a month if we wanted to. We have to do it every 10 years. But there were some cats talking about the census last night, and one of the prevailing theories, or not prevailing theories, one of the theories put forward on the podcast last night was, what if we run the census and we find out it's not just that the illegals made a difference, but we don't know how many illegals were counted in the census. What if we do the census? Trump says you're only allowed to count citizens. And we find out that the population of the United States is actually only 290 million. Once you cut out all the illegals. What if, that was this was the theory of why the Democrats are so concerned, are so against doing the mid-decade census. Because we might find out that there's a lot more illegal aliens than we thought. Or we might find out that there just aren't as many people in the country as the last census reported. Now, we already know, incontrovertibly, we already know that the 2020 census got it wrong by like a lot. They overcounted in blue state. They overcounted in blue states and undercounted in red states. Right? They overcounted, creating somewhere between there are estimates between 4 and 12 additional House seats in California, New York, and a few other blue states. Some estimates are as high as 22 total additional blue state House reps between all the several states that were overcounted, and several red states were undercounted and then apportioned fewer reps than they should have been. Right? And these numbers are so severe that we're not just talking about there being more blue reps than there should be and less red reps than there should be. We're talking about there being more reps than there should be, period. Right? It might be that once the math is done, we need to just trim about 50 actual seats. I'm not talking about blue seats flipping to red seats here, right? I mean, there will be some of that too, but there might just be 50 seats that go away because there just aren't that many people in the country, right? And I think the best argument that was presented in this theory was that nobody ever checks the census. There's no verification mechanism. There's no enforcement mechanism. The census is one of those jobs. It's one of those government jobs that's always full of, basically welfare broodmares that need to work. They need a make work gig where they work just enough hours to qualify for the work qualifications. Danny says 2 to 3 million illegals have left. No, I think it's higher than that. I think it's actually quite a bit higher than that. You see the videos of downtown LA after the ICE raids, and there's no traffic. I wish they'd do some ICE raids in Atlanta. No, I'm kidding. I don't give a shit about Atlanta. I stay out of Atlanta. But yeah, the fact is that we're seeing lies unraveled. As once we get that mid-decade census, and that now there's going to have to be some strict caution, if we go that route, and I see them hiring for census personnel, I might just jump on that train and go work that gig so that I can get my nose in there and kind of pay attention to it and say, okay, nope. Because how hard would it be for somebody with nefarious intent to walk up and knock on the door and say, hey, how many people live here? 3. That sounds like 6 to me. Right? And just lie about the numbers. Or, if you are a savvy lefty, maybe you realize that, because some people they mail you the form, you fill out the form, you send it in, and if you never send in the form, then in theory somebody's going to come knock on your door. I promise they don't manage to knock on every door that they probably should, but how hard would it be for a savvy lefty to say, oh, it's me and my husband and our gay adopted baby. So yeah, that's 7. That's 7 people, right? Because this is one of the things that they do. They talk about how to get one over. They talk about how they can do their part to defraud the government. Right? It goes back to that 5th generational warfare thing, the amorphous warfare. Right? Nobody tells them that they should do it. They inform them that there are things they can do to help the resistance, help the revolution. And yeah. Jason says all of the immigrants are figuring out that they can move to small town USA, find jobs, and blend in. Yeah, so let's see what I can pull something up about that. And there you go. U.S. Immigrations and Custom Enforcement. You can go to U.S. Immigration. You can go to ice.gov/webform and send in a tip. And tell them about that violation if you've spotted somebody. Yeah, there you go. All right, guys. I am going to go ahead and put a pin in it right there so I can get out the door and get to work. I want to say thank you for watching this morning. And before I hang it up, since there's enough of you in there, let me go ahead and just remind you that we are on Rumble, right? So you probably noticed Rumble's growing fast and it's not slowing down. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now there's Rumble Premium, an easy way to upgrade your experience with Premium. You get ad-free viewing across the platform, no pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content you came for. Plus, Premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and more from your favorite creators. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. Just go to rumble.com/premium. Use the promo code STUDIO at checkout. That's rumble.com/premium, promo code STUDIO. No ads, more freedom, and content that you actually care about. That's the deal. And yeah, you can click, down there in the description, you can click on the link and it'll take you to the sign up. And guys, watch Any Given Morning. We'll see certain numbers and levels of viewership, especially when I start seeing people migrating over from the free side. I like to give away a freebie every now and then. So in order to get that, you have to be watching while we're live, and you have to be watching while we're live, and you have to be signed in with actually signed in as a free member or a premium member, in order to get a random free membership when I drop them. Like Uncle Steve just got a free month of membership from the Brushfire Mind, and that means he can go back and watch the episode we did this past Saturday night on Edward Bernays and the birth of public relations, which, guys, that was I think we did a hell of a good job on the Edward Bernays story. And that's an important thing to understand. And that one was difficult to do because it's so important and it touches on so many other things that there's a lot that spider web's out to connect to. Different types of propaganda, marketing, the manipulation of the public perception, the manipulation of the zeitgeist, and how the media controls you. Yeah, that was a hard one to do because there's so much that we had to just kind of brush over. Just, okay, here's a thing that's important, but we don't have time to get deep into that. We're gonna have to do that in another deep dive later. Some of those get difficult to do for exactly that reason. Once you get into the deep dives, they correlate to so many other important things that it's hard sometimes to kind of truncate the conversation down and make sure that you're getting the exact pertinent information. But yeah, go over to Rumble and look for the Edward Bernays story, the man who sold you everything, and go check that one out if you've got the premium membership account. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it. I got to get down the road. Thanks for watching today, guys. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.